Hello, and following the really good feedback we received regarding one of our videos with this walkthrough concept when we were at Patek Philippe, I've decided to expand this into a new series of content. I mean, the goal is to really take the time and visit together some brands and other workshops and discover a bit more in details the ins and outs of watchmaking manufacturing processes. So the other day I was in Bienne, that's one of the important watchmaking cities of Switzerland. That's where you will find, for instance, the headquarters of the Swatch Group, and the main Omega manufacturing facility, but also where Rolex historically manufactures its movements. Anyhow, I was there to pay a small first-time visit to the guys of Armin Strom, and I knew this brand for quite some time, knew their products and timepieces, but actually never visited them. And I have to say that I was seriously impressed and surprised by what I saw, and that's the reason why I thought it would be an interesting thing to show you how a young and almost start-up-y brand is set up. And when I say this, it doesn't take anything away from the fact that they manufacture some fine watchmaking timepieces with their very own identity, and when it comes to their movements, well, that's a pretty serious operation we're about to discover together. So off we go for this visit, and let me very quickly remind you the history of the brand, because at the start you indeed have a Mr. Armin Strom. He was a Swiss retailer, and in the basement of his shop he pursued with his watchmaking passion by skeletonizing about 10 timepieces per year that he would sell under his own name. So this started around the 80s, and in 2006 this very small and niche brand was taken over by the family and the man who is at its helm today, Mr. Serge Michel.
My family, we came in 2006 because we were close family friends, or still close family friends with the family Strom, with maybe Mr. Armin Strom, and was the idea of taking the brand Armin Strom a step further. He didn't have the capacity to make his own movements, so he bought movements and disassembled them, hand skeletonized them, engraved them, put them together again, and sold these unique pieces.
So what were your first objectives, and why set up a full movement manufacturer?
One part was being dependent from suppliers, etc. So we saw there's a limited amount of movements we can buy, but even more important was the exclusivity. The decision came in 2007 when also Claude Chrysler joined the company.
We wanted to be an independent movement maker. This was our main goal. We wanted to be able to produce everything in-house. There's a small infrastructure. Our building is not that huge, but it's a complete manufactory. We go to buy brass and steel, and out of brass and steel we are able to make 98% of the movements. Today we have suppliers, of course, for jewels. We have a supplier for the mainspring and suppliers for hairsprings. But all the other parts, if it could be a screw, a pinion, axis, main plate, bridges, gear trains, even gear trains are made in-house.
The fact of having all these skills in-house gives them a much greater flexibility, and since 2009 they have more or less presented one new movement per year, and for a little team like them I can tell you that's quite an achievement. So before jumping into this walkthrough, let me very briefly recap the design characteristics of this brand. And as you can imagine, the notion of open work and skeletonization is still at its core, but also, and interestingly, by slightly off-centering the dial to the left, and not only for design purposes, but also because by doing so it frees up a bit of space within the case and enables them to put larger barrels and therefore longer power reserves. So okay, enough blah blah, and let's go together for the visit, and we'll start by the control tower of the production machines found in this facility.
This is the office of Kevin. Kevin is the head of fabrication. Kevin is in charge of the whole production side. That means all the CNC machines are under his control.
So from here you pilot absolutely every single machine that is over there.
Exactly. So here we have two drilling machines. One of them is producing screws. We are doing now, at the moment, we are doing small screws for the balance. And at the same time, on the bigger machine, we are doing the balance wheels. So the machine is also able to milling, to do all the holes, all the openings of the spokes. Everything is made in one machine. Okay. We have to do like bigger volumes, because it doesn't make sense to set up the machine for a screw and just having 200 screws produced. So we are screws, especially in our philosophy, we are using the same screw on each movement. This belongs to our philosophy.
Just to give you an idea of the dimensions we're talking in watchmaking, can you imagine that in this little box there are approximately 4,000 screws? I mean, that's quite crazy, no?
All the parts are made out of round raw material. That could be either different types of brass, different diameters of brass. The serious one is for the barrels. Because if we do the barrel, if we start to produce screws, maybe there's 2-3 times a year we are making screws, but then we are making all different sizes of screws because the machine is set up to take the small steel diameter, so we are not changing it up or changing the whole setup every time.
Because how long does it take you to set up a machine approximately?
It depends on how complex the part is. I mean, the setup of a balance wheel, which have a lot of different millings and drillings and operations, this can take up to 3-4 days. So gear train cutting is, we have the base plate which is drilled out on the machine we saw before, and then we have to put the shape of the teeth. The shape of the teeth, we have to mill it out from, let's say, round plates to give them the right dimension of the teeth. This is something you learn from somebody who did it for in the past 20-30 years. This is a knowledge which somebody gives to somebody, and that's a cool thing. I think for me, the gear train in the watch movement is one of the most important things, and gear train cutting is about making no mistakes. Meaning, so now we have seen the machines I showed you is all for all the round parts. The milling, actually, where we do main plates, bridges, livers, micro rotors. For all those parts, we have like plates as a raw material. They can either be in brass or in steel. And out of those plates, we mill out the shape of the part. That can be a main plate which is quite a big part. Or also we go for smaller escapement bridges, up to very, very thin, very small steel parts. So what we do is a high-speed milling. We go up to 60,000 turns per minute because this is very important because we use very small tools to mill out the parts. So as smaller a tool gets, as smaller the speed is. If you have like a big diameter, you have a lot of speed on the outside. If you have a very small tool, you have nearly no speed. So that's why we need this very high-speed turning. So we are not cutting out by CNC milling, we are cutting out by wire erosion.
It's more precise?
It's more precise, yes. And it also allows us to having share the volume on two machines. Wire erosion is like sewing something. That's why we call it. Armin Strom himself was very known for the skeletonizing, so he was sewing out parts from a main plate or a bridge. That's why we call it, in between the manufacturing, we don't call it wire erosion, we call it the Armin Strom, because it's the same job he did every day. So it's a wire, it's a very thin wire.
Made out of?
Made out of, this is a special steel alloy. And then actually you burn out the material. So in giving electricity on this wire, the wire burns out the metal.
I see that you have still kind of an old school machine. What is it useful for?
This one is used for giving the right shape to the tools. So most of the tools we have to adjust them. We are buying tools to cut out or to mill out the parts, but we have to finally adjust them. This is like a philosophy. Every mechanic has his own philosophy of how the tool should cut out, and so he's giving different angles depending on if it's a steel part, if it's a brass part. It's like the chef who is doing his knives. It's about the same philosophy.
How do you proceed for your quality control?
Our series are so small, and we are nearly controlling 100% of the parts. So especially for gear trains or for parts which you have a lot of decoration after, we have to make sure that they are technically right from the beginning. Because imagine sometimes a main plate, it takes up to 8 hours of decoration. If it's engraved, it can be 10, 12, 15 hours. And then if the watchmaker is not able to assemble, that will be a catastrophe.
And yet another machine, but with a cool little surprise for us.
So our latest machine we just bought is a laser engraving machines, because of course we are doing the hand engraving, but we also have to do some technical engravings like numberings or case engravings which are not made by hand. But we also can do special engravings on request, and sometimes this can be either a logo from a company or it can be something else.
I see. Nice. Okay, so let's now leave the production side of the manufacture and go back up on the first floor where finishing and assembly operations are carried out.
Okay, now we are in the decoration workshop. After production, all the parts are coming into the decoration workshop, and we are spending a lot of time in doing decorations. First of all, we have 100% decoration. That means we even surfaces which are not visible at the end, so they are perfectly decorated. This is a little bit the standard of horlogerie. We are doing a lot of hand decorations. Most of the decorations are handmade here. That means we are doing the polishing, the bevels are hand polished. We do the scratching of the sides of the bridge is handmade. We do the hand engravings, but we also have smaller machines like to do a perlage or a Geneva stripes. We're using some machines. And you can do the best decoration, but then if the watchmakers are not able to assemble the movement or there's a technical problem, so it doesn't make sense to go too deep into exactly. If it's too perfect, then it doesn't have this fire in the decoration. If it's handmade, so they're very close to be perfect, but there's still this little mistake which makes everything becomes to life finally. So after decoration, the parts, they need a plating, because to cover them for oxidation, and the plating is also a color giving which is design-wise then important for the look of the watch. So first of all, we have to cover the brass to make sure that there's no oxidation. So we have different galvanic treatments we are doing. First of all, we do a pre-gold. The pre-gold is to make the polishing and the decorations a bit more shiny. Then we are doing a nickel treatment, a nickel plating to cover to protect the brass from the oxidation. And after nickel, we always have either a ruthenium, rhodium, gold, or what kind of a prestige metal plating at the end.
And finally, let's enter the watchmaker's workshop.
Assembling, we are talking about two kinds of assembling. We are doing the pre-assemblings. The pre-assemblings means that we have to, if we have a pinion and a wheel, we have to bring them together. We have to put the stones in the main plates and in the bridges. For all those operations, we need special tools. So we are doing the pre-assemblings in groups, a set of 20, 30, 40 parts. And then, after those pre-assemblings are made, the watchmaker is finally doing the final assembling of the movement. And then once the movement is finally assembled, we have to do different tests. We have to adjust the movement. We have to make sure that the movement is running perfectly. So this is a test period of, we can take up to 1 month. It depends on the movement, of how long we have the power reserve. If once all those tests, the running tests are okay, then we do the final assembling. The final assembling means we are putting the dial, we are putting the hands, we are putting the whole movement in the case. We are closing the case. We are making sure that the case is waterproof, and then we test again the whole process, start from zero. Let's be unique in the movement. We design the hands, we design the dials, we design the cases, but we have different suppliers for those parts.
So I hope this gave you a nice overview of a full movement manufacture process operation, and as I said in the beginning of this video, I was sincerely impressed by what they put together. I mean, that's a serious operation for a rather small brand and demonstrates a real commitment. So we didn't really talk about their products. They approximately do 600 timepieces per year, but I think we will come back on a very specific one in a later video, because despite being a small company, they are also very innovative, and about a year ago they introduced a resonance movement which actually works, and that's quite something. And I think it deserves a bit more explanation. Anyhow, can't wait to do other walkthroughs like this one. Was really fun to do, hope you enjoyed it too. All the best to you, and thanks for your time, and of course a special thanks to our patrons.